Hello and welcome to the Flag to Flag Motorsport Podcast. My name is Charlie Roscoe and I'm joined by expert livery designer Ryan from Ryan Lee Graphics and, as always, the esteemed Willie. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello. How are we going?
Very, very well, and another big round of racing in the previous weekend. Of course, we had the World Superbikes from Imola, another track circuit that I absolutely love. We had the Formula 1 from Spain, generally a pretty boring race, but it was actually very entertaining this time round. And I think Jeremy Clarkson probably put it best when he said that it was entertaining because it seemed like someone locked the stewards in the lavatory. So more on that later. But also the Blancpain race, the first endurance of the year, the 3 hours from Silverstone, second even, and another cracking race. So with that, but before we get going, something interesting next week. We will finally be united geographically to do the podcast, which should be interesting, and probably won't have a video game playing in the background, a racing simulator of some sort. Probably lots of footage from the track, so we are heading over to Phillip Island to watch the Australian GT. Looking forward to it, and as I say, finally, gents, will be united geographically. We'll be able to do the podcast from the same room for the first time ever.
Don't have to worry about internet connections and all that sort of stuff. It'll be great.
No dropouts. It's going to be fantastic. So looking forward to the next podcast. But back to this one, and we'll start with the World Superbikes. And it was painted red pretty much, start to finish, as every single race was red flagged. The two World Superbikes and of course the World Supersport probably copped it the most. But I'll tell you what was interesting, finally to see, it's another double winner. That's not unusual for the World Superbikes, but it wasn't a green motorcycle. Of course, it was red. It was Chaz Davies. And it's nice to see him back up on top with some form, and he was pretty well untouchable the whole weekend. Overall, pretty good job, I thought.
Oh, definitely. Race one, he smashed the field.
I think it was 6.7 seconds in front of Johnny Ray, which is huge. Anyone that can finish that far in front of Ray has had a pretty good time.
Yeah, Ray was quick, but Davies, he was just a powerhouse.
Yeah,
not much else you can say about it. He was just untouchable. He just had a good lead pretty much from the first lap and just disappeared.
Well, I think the track actually suits the Ducati quite well, because there's a lot of sort of stop-start type stuff with the chicanes and that sort of thing. And I think the torque of the Ducati probably came in to its own a little bit, so it suited the bike, and he was just, he was on form. He was absolutely smashing it, and he won the first race more convincingly than the second, but still very, very good race. And in fact, in the second race, he was saved a little bit by the red flag, because he got a terrible start initially. He actually went backwards. He went from 9th, I think he started 9th. No, he must have started 10th. And he went down to 12th there at one stage, maybe 11th. So not a great start. But, of course, with the red flag, he got to start a little bit higher up and powered on through. So did get away with it there. But the crash that brought the red flag out in race one, probably not the most impressive crash ever, but we don't often see bikes explode into flames these days, do we?
No, it was a bit of a big one once it finished from Lavity.
I actually felt really sorry for Lavity, to be honest.
Yeah.
He'd been fighting. Obviously, the Aprilia had minced its tyres or done something, because he was plummeting, doing his best to fight, and it was actually nice to see the Milwaukee Aprilia up there. Look, that team probably hasn't had the best go of it in World Superbike since it's hit. And Eugene Lavity's a really good racer. He's a good guy. He's come back from MotoGP. I was disappointed to see he was fighting on. Not really his fault. If you didn't see the incident, he actually clashed with another rider, which popped the front mudguard. It actually sort of folded or bent right over and out and looked like it got itself wedged in the left-hand rotor, the brake.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure actually what caused it. I was just about to ask that, but that's good. It's lucky they've got two bikes really for the weekend.
Yeah, that's it. That one's certainly a write-off. I think he said it was a cut brake line in the end, but either way, you could see him grab the front brake, and about half a split second later, he'd already made the decision to bail off the side. And that's probably a sign of his experience as well. A lot of people tend to fight the bike into the gravel trap, get in there and realise that they're heading straight for a wall and then try and bail. And they usually end up in the wall themselves. But he was still on the circuit. He was still, approaching the corner, and he'd already went, nope, that's me, I'm done. I'm going to jump off the side of this thing. And,
it went in with some pace.
It went in with a lot of pace. He actually, it worked perfectly because he pulled up in the gravel trap. It looked a little bit shaken, a little bit hurt, but I'd imagine jumping off the side of a bike at, I think, 220 odd kilometres he was doing at that point when he bailed. That's got to hurt. Yep. I don't care who you are or how much protective gear you've got, it's got to hurt. But it worked because he never made the wall. The bike did, and it went in petrol tank first and just exploded into a fiery ball of flame. So, yeah, you don't get to see bikes burning very much. But that one, nice and crispy, actually.
Yeah, and Honda didn't really have a good run either. Hayden retired from race one with I think it was an electrical issue.
Yeah, they're having a bad go of it. The brand new blade, look at the road bike version, looks fantastic, I've got to say. Big fan of that, but geez, they're not going well in the World Superbikes, are they? And it's a completely different thing. I'm not going to pretend like that's a it's a super stock class, because it's not. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's as much about the preparation of the bike as anything. There's probably not a whole lot of components left from the road bike, only the ones they have to use. So probably not the most accurate reflection, but it's a bit of a shame. It's a good looking bike. They got the Red Bull on board now, but just no pace at all. And I think Bradle was 10th in race 1, and that was with all the fallers as well. And in race 2, Nicky Hayden was 12th, and trying to think where Bradle came 14th. So, yeah, not a great showing by Honda again. Yeah,
hopefully Red Bull sticks with them.
Yeah, well, I hope so. If they're opening their wallet, Red Bull don't tend to go too badly. They tend to sort their things out. But, yeah, we'll find out how they're going. But nonetheless, it was good to see the Ducati getting a couple of wins. Race 2, Johnny Ray obviously had to fight his way back, which was different. He actually ran off through I think it was the final chicane he bounced through, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had a moment there. He went too deep, and I really don't know how he hung onto the bike. It's just stuck like poo to a doona, really. Pushed too far in, and he just cranked it over it. Yeah, so he lost a couple of spots there, but still, he come back to second. He's still pretty good.
Yeah, poor old Tommy Sykes. It'd be very hard for him to pick himself up after each race. No matter what opportunity he gets to beat his teammate, Johnny Ray seems to always have that one up on him. Hunted him down again. The only thing I will say is at least once Johnny Ray overtook him in race 2, Sykes was able to hang on to the back of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course the World Super Sport, as I mentioned, that was a bit of a cluster, really, wasn't it? There was a lot of red flags there.
Well, to start with, there was a delayed start for the track conditions. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, someone had a technical issue, didn't they?
Yeah, and Rolfo, he didn't have much of a go. He had a crash, which caused the red flag. That was the gravel. Actually, it wasn't. I don't think it was the crash that caused the gravel. It was in the final chicane. It was when he picked the bike up and he dropped the clutch when he was walking, trying to walk the bike away, and it just sprayed the circuit with gravel. I thought, you idiot.
Yeah, I did see that. That was a bit silly, and I agree. The crash obviously spread a little bit of gravel over it, but yeah, he dropped the clutch and sort of did a bit of burnout in the gravel trap, and it just sprayed gravel all over the track. It was a bizarre choice of things to do, but nonetheless, he did get going again for the second restart. Yeah,
so they restarted with 11 laps to go. I can't remember how many laps there were in total for the Super Sport. Was it 18?
Yeah, it was after the revised amount, I think.
No, there was only 11 after that.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Just
yeah,
trying to think.
Was too.
It might have been that after the delayed start.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so there was that, and then another red flag only 2 laps in after that. And then the restarted race was then put on after the World Superbike race, the second race.
Yeah, they were just chewing up too much time, and I think that was the point that somebody, one of the stewards somewhere, just threw all the paperwork off the desk and went, nope, we'll come back to this later on.
Yeah, that was... Rolfo was actually involved with the second crash as well, which caused the second red flag of the race, so he wasn't having much of a go at all. I think that was with Malone. I think he was involved in it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, the 600s is always a little bit like that. You get a lot of just get a lot more crashes, I suppose. People trying a lot harder. They're obviously in the support category. They want to be in the main game, so you see a bit of that. But I don't know. It was just one of those races, wasn't it? That nothing wanted to go right. But it certainly all went right for Sofoglu, who finally found himself only qualified 5th, so not the best qualifying, but he managed to find the win anyway.
Yeah, and I think now he's only 35 points off the championship lead. So, and he'd missed 3 races and then crashed in another one or something like that. So, all in all, it's not too bad. It's still less than the gap that Davies to Johnny Ray, or wherever Davies is. Is it Davies to Johnny Ray, or is it Sykes to Johnny Ray?
Sykes, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Or it might be Davies now after his wins, but yeah, that's like 50 points still or something like that. It's a huge margin. Yeah, it's a track that when none of these issues happen, it's great. A lot of tight corners. It's fast. It's quite exciting. I really like it. A couple of sweeping corners down in a braking area, so they've already got the knee out, say, on the left-hand side as they're coming around a right-hand sweeper, that sort of thing. But to have 2 red flags in the World Supersport race and a delayed start, and then a red flag each in both the other World Superbike races, it's a bit of a funny old weekend, really.
Yeah, it was actually. It was. So, as I say, Sofoglu back up top, but I think the key to a lot of his success in the World Supersports is a lack of consistency by his competitors. It's what cost Cluzel his championship last year, and that seems to be the thing. And the way they're going, if one of the other competitors can't consistently keep getting podiums, I really don't see how, any reason Sofoglu can't come back and win this championship as well. Yeah,
that'll be his 6th. If he wins this year.
Speaking of Cluzel, I bet he's regretting leaving MV because PJ Jacobson's been going very well on the MV Augusta this year. Cluzel's really been scraping top 5s. He actually got 6th in this race on the Honda. Probably not the best or smartest move of his. I suppose you don't know until you try, but I don't think the MV Augusta was ever the problem, to be honest. I think that had the pace, and the Honda has probably been struggling for a little while. Interesting move, but I reckon he's regretting it now.
Yeah, he probably just moved for consistency, I suppose, probably to finish races, but so far the MV's been pretty consistent.
It has. And in terms of the Australian in the field, obviously Anthony West, not too bad in the end to end up 11th, bearing in mind that he's bolting that bike together based off not much. He's doing a lot of it himself. Very small team. Always looking for financial backing. So he's doing a good job just to turn up to the races, let alone get a result. Qualified 20th. Certainly not a great qualifying position. So to come 11th, probably not a bad takeaway for him.
Yeah, he goes pretty well in the races. It's just a shame his qualifying isn't a bit better. I know he's not going to peel through the first half of the field like he has the second half, but if he could qualify 10th, he could be getting top 5s, maybe sneak a podium. Depending on what else happens.
That issue is the bike itself. I don't think the bike's as competitive as he would like, and it's certainly probably not one of the faster bikes out there. So on that 1 lap hot pace, he just doesn't seem to have it. But
it's probably more of like a race bike rather than a qualifying bike.
Craft.
Yeah,
he's got good racecraft, so he knows what he's doing. But not a bad weekend. But moving over to the Formula 1, that was a cracking race, which is unusual for Spain. Although having said that, I think they said last year there was 46 overtakes during the race, which made it the 6th highest for the year, which is not too bad given that the track is typically not a good one to overtake around. But in the end, very interesting race. Lots of things happening. Obviously, early on incident with Kimi Räikkönen and Verstappen involved there as well. And Bottas really was probably the catalyst of it all, and he was the one that got away with it.
Yeah, it was him that sort of like a racing incident really, but it was he sort of instigated all that, so that was a bit of a shame. And then Alonso, who started so well, like he's qualifying, what was he, 7th or something like that?
Yeah, he did. Started 7th, and it was horrible.
Yeah, and then that ended up putting him back to 11th, and then by the end of the race, I think he finished 13th, but
12th he finished in the end. Yeah, so pretty average, really. He'll be very disappointed given obviously where he started. But I tell you what else was average. Just while we're getting this out of the way early on, Daniel Ricciardo obviously came third. That's great. Fantastic for the Australian to see him back on the podium. The only, or the highest finisher that didn't get lapped.
Yep.
So, and he
Pretty
was
average.
75 seconds behind the leading two, or 75 seconds behind Hamilton, who won, obviously. So that's a long way behind as well. And the rest of the field got lapped. That's just a pretty good indication of the disparity between the front runners, the Mercedes and the Ferrari, versus the rest of the field.
Yeah, it probably shows it off quite well, I guess, because each one of those top three teams had one of the two cars out of the race, so they only had one surviving car each. So
it just exposes it more, doesn't it? Like normally,
it does.
You wouldn't see it because it'd be the top six that were going okay. But yeah, because obviously Bottas was a DNF, Kimi was out early, as was Verstappen. So the top three teams were only had one finisher, which were the top three. But moving on to a more positive thing, how good was Force India? They got the fourth and the fifth, and they're now really close to Red Bull in the overall team standings, which is fantastic for them.
Yeah, and to top it all off too, they got a $37,000 fine for their numbers. See that one? I don't know whether that was both or each. Yeah,
I'd say it was both. Yeah, but
yeah, that was for both. It did get postponed for 12 months, though, so I saw a few people jumping up and down at how ridiculous it was for the FIA to.
Usually, most fines are postponed, but at the end of the day, I don't really think that they're going to be too worried about $37,000 when you're talking about Formula One.
No, that's exactly right. It was a 25,000 euro or pound or something like that, and we're converting it to Australian dollars there. But I don't think that'd be. Well, they don't have to pay it anyway because it got postponed. As long as they don't infringe again, which they're not going to. They've already said
they're not going to.
So the numbers were new for this round. That was correct, wasn't it?
The sizing of the numbers and the positioning of them. Yeah.
Yeah, which was just above the side pod. Bit hard to see.
Yeah, and I think most of them ran them on the shark fins and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't think that they had them on the nose at all. Like you couldn't see a number on the nose.
Actually, the nose cone that was the problem. They did have them on the nose, but the problem is you were supposed to have them visible from all angles. The nose cone was supposed to be visible from the front. They looked at multiple angles, multiple front end shots, and you literally couldn't see it because whilst it was on the nose, it was right in front of the driver, which is actually a flat surface. It's a horizontal surface. So from front on, you couldn't read it. You could only really read the numbers from the top down image. From straight on, they sort of have a weird nose where it goes up on an angle, and then you have a flat vertical piece. That would have been the good spot for the number, but I think their hype sponsorship was on that part, and then the number was on the flat horizontal part of the nose, and it just didn't coincide. So that's what the fine was for. But as I say, they're not going to worry. They don't even have to pay it because as long as they don't infringe again over the next 12 months, then the fine doesn't count, and they're not going to infringe again. So.
And I bet you any money that the money that they got for putting the sponsorship sticker on there is probably more than what they have to pay for a fine.
Exactly, and that's a fair point brought up, I think, by the commentators as well, that said, to introduce these large numbers, and also they were encouraged, whilst not required, they were encouraged to put the 3-letter abbreviation for the driver names on the car as well. Not compulsory, but it was encouraged. But as I think it was Martin Brundle said, sponsors pay big dollars in Formula One to have anything on the car, even tiny little words you can barely read, are costing companies a lot of money.
Even doing working with teams doing liveries and stuff for them, I mean, seeing the numbers that they're putting forward to having these logos in various places on much lower category cars like GT3 and all that sort of stuff, that's staggering alone. Let alone to think what people are paying for these Formula One cars.
That's it. It'd be interesting to know what the sponsors actually feel about these sorts of changes. I mean, it's one thing you introduce a rule like this to make the numbers easier for, and this is really, let's not beat around the bush here. This is very much about the fans and the supporters, because the official timers don't need these numbers. This is for the people watching on TV and at the racetrack. But the thing is, who's paying for? So as I said, Force India have got hype along the front. If that's where their number ends up, is hype now going to say, well, I'm not going to give you as much money. We had a prime bit of real estate on your car. Now you're going to shift us down.
Yep. And that's something you do learn as well, like doing the designs for cars. I now know, because I trawl over lots and lots of images of all these cars, horrible places to put sponsors. And you know which is the most prominent, you know which part of the car is going to get the most exposure, and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely a thing, and you could certainly imagine that front-on shot that saw the I think that's the same one you're talking about with the Hype logo. That front-on shot would get a lot of exposure and a lot of photos. So you would think that it would be a significant amount of money to get your logo there.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I'm not saying I know full well that's where the numbers are going to be going for next race, but I'd imagine that
thereabouts.
They might not be. They might be halfway down there. But either way, sponsor logos are going to have to be shifted around. That has to have a financial impact on the teams or the sponsors or something like that. So I get why the rule was changed, and that's fine for people like us watching at home. But yeah, to then fine them. Having said that, I suppose they did know the rules and chose not to follow them. So,
yeah. I mean, I think part of the interesting part was the fact that they went through scrutineering and it wasn't picked up. And
that's why it got postponed as well, because they'd had it there the whole weekend and they didn't get fined till after the race. I mean, they went through, as you say, scrutineering, all the practice sessions, qualifying, and not once were they ever told, hey, where's your number off the front of the car?
Yeah, it was probably their hashtag F1 little chats and bits and pieces they have, because they actually spoke about it from somebody commenting, asking where the numbers were, and they said, well, they're on the car. They were talking about it during the race. So it was probably something like that, where I guess it was brought to their attention a little more.
Yeah, and
but you would think it's part of this. You'd think it's part of the official's job, though, to be looking for these things.
Yeah, if they're going to make the rules, then who's enforcing them?
They should be cleared up. They shouldn't be getting the fine now. What should happen is they just want it down at the end of the day, or send them an email and just say, look, you need to move it up. And that's it. There shouldn't be a fine. As you said, it's been running around all weekend prior to the race.
To be totally honest,
the fine was a lot about tokenism as well, though. I think it's also the FIA going, hey, this is what the potential fine is if you choose not to follow our rules, but we're not actually going to charge you for it as long as you don't do it again. So I think it's a lot about tokenism and just letting the teams know what they could be up for.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not really that bothered, because I could, if I took all the paintwork off all the cars and you just gave me numbers, I couldn't tell you the numbers of any of the cars.
No, and I'm a bit the same. And of course, this is only first or second year now where they've had fixed numbers.
Second, I think.
Second year, because of course, throughout the history of Formula One, the numbers have just been where they came the previous season. You can choose the first year you're in if it's available, but then you just get that. So, it's a new thing. A lot of people don't know that. People use helmets, and it's not hard to get the big pink Mustig helmet of the Force India drivers, not confused. But, people have their own thing. But anyway, we've spoken about that for quite a long time. We've not been talking about the biggest, most significant thing that happened throughout the entire Formula One race. And that is the moment, I don't know if you remember this moment, but that is the moment where Fernando Alonso in the McLaren Honda overtook a car with a Mercedes engine in a straight line.
Yep.
It happened.
Yeah, but you don't know the circumstances, though.
No,
well, it doesn't matter.
Fantastic.
It was amazing. I mean, come on. Geez, surely it's Honda overtook a Mercedes. The rest of it's irrelevant. Who cares about that? The point is, Fernando Alonso in a Honda overtook a Mercedes in a straight line, and that I think is a significant thing. Yeah,
I thought the weekend was going to start bad when it was practice 1 and he blew an engine at turn 2.
I think everyone slapped their head. Yeah,
I just thought, you might as well just go home. But yeah, look at him go. He qualified. He was in the last qualifying session. Look at him go.
He was Q3. Yeah, first time in Q3 for the Honda engine. So
yeah, to start off with, I thought there was a mistake or something like that. So he was in there. Had a little mischief at the start, but he finished the race. He passed cars, and to see all that happen, to quote Ryan, it was sensational.
It was sensational. So yeah, he did overtake. Obviously, I'm being a bit facetious here, but nonetheless,
it's
an enjoyable moment.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, whilst on the topic of Alonso, it is a little bit off topic at the same time, but he did actually go to Indianapolis straight after the Formula One to do the rookie and refresher test, which he was the fastest in.
Yeah, straight at the top of the time sheet. Not surprised.
Yeah, love it. Good work. But speaking of qualifying before, it was very interesting early on in, obviously, qualifying one, when Vettel went out there and everything. Oh, yes, thank you, it's all good. And then immediately they're like, yeah, park the car. And his instant reaction and the commentators pointed to that was the fact that, are you sure? Like, you really want me to do that? And they're like, oh, all right, bring it back. And then it sort of just switched over and job done. It was fine. And went out and did one of the fastest. Did one of the fastest laps of the session and job done. So
he actually admitted after the race that that was more good luck than good management, because he said he didn't really hear the team order over the radio, and he just kind of said, "Oh, are you sure?" Because he really wanted the confirmation that they had said pull over and stop the car. So it's just good luck, because he said if they had come back and said, "Yep, confirm pull over," he said, "I just would have pulled over at the very next available moment." But they kind of went, "Oh, bring it back if you can." He changed an engine mode, and then they went, "Nope, you know what, you're good to go." And of course he ended up going along very nicely. So I think one good thing to take out of it all at the moment is that whilst there's only two cars, I said earlier on when we were talking about or at the start of the Formula 1 piece here, I said that it's discouraging, I suppose, to see the disparity between the top two teams and the rest of them, but there is still two teams, and I think we can officially say at this point that there should be a Ferrari and Mercedes battle now for the rest of the year. I don't see any reason. They've gone to a variety of tracks. The Ferrari's there or thereabouts every time.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I don't see any reasons why this won't continue for the year, and that's good. That's a good thing. Like, sure, I wish the Red Bulls were there. I wish Force India were there, but baby steps over the last 3 years, and we've actually got a fight on for the championship between two different teams, not just the two drivers in the one team.
That's right, and it's we've spoken about it. It's good for the year like that. We've spoken about it previously with supercars, other teams doing that, having gone through a few different tracks and being competitive. It's nice to see, and it makes you a little bit more excited for the next race.
It does. It gets you up and about that it's not going to be a Mercedes in the top two, and it's just who comes third. I think it's a good thing, and whilst Lewis Hamilton won, and some people sort of might groan at that and go, "Oh, here we go." Nah, it was only 3.5 seconds back to Seb. Margins were like that in the last 3 years between him and Rosberg or higher. So, no, that's fine. As long as they keep scrapping it out and the championship is alive, then I'm happy. I'm a happy F1 fan. And hopefully, I think Red Bull will be disappointed because I believe they brought some upgrades to Spain, hoping to get a lot closer, and they were not, unfortunately. We'll see how they go at Monaco. That's next. Doesn't matter about horsepower so much there, although I don't think Red Bull's got the overall package this year. Either, which they've had previously, but we'll see how we go. There are some other tracks that might suit the Red Bulls slightly more, but regardless of that, two teams fighting for the championship, and I think that is a really good thing. And before we actually finish up on Formula 1, I also want to throw a little line out to Pascal Wehrlein, who is really just kicking some goals since he come back from his little injury. 8th position in the Sauber, finishing in front of Toro Rosso, Haas, obviously Ericsson, his teammate, was a long way back. He did really well, and he only finished 8th because of a penalty he got, a 5-second penalty. So, good job. That's fantastic. Anything in the top 10 for a Sauber at the moment has got to be like Christmas.
Yeah, definitely. It was it the middle stint that really shot him up there?
Yeah, they just got the balancing right between the safety cars and the pitting and stuff like that. So team strategy was certainly involved, but the kid put his head down and he was fast. He was scrapping with Carlos Sainz, who I regard as being one of the better drivers on the grid, despite being completely overlooked because of Verstappen. I think he's been overlooked a bit, but I think he's a quality driver, and Wehrlein was scrapping it out. Sure, Sauber have done well, and you can't take it away from them, but good drive. Good drive.
Yeah. Ferrari need to work on their strategy a little bit. They're getting better, but they cost Seb the race. Hamilton pitted under the safety car. That was out for a couple of laps. The first lap they didn't pit. Second one they did. And then it was the first green lap they brought Sebastian in. And that cost him. It cost him about 8 seconds. And, I think I recall him saying before the podium, I think it was to Danny Rick, he said, he lost about 8 seconds. He said, I'm not really sure where. Must have been just from previous conversations in the car, and that was exactly where. And I did like it earlier on in the race too, when the pressure was on and that Hamilton couldn't guarantee where he was going to finish because the obviously strategy hadn't played out. Vettel early on was just disappearing into the distance. He was getting very flustered and very angry on the radio, and it was good to see him a little bit flustered because... it just opens it up. Hopefully makes a mistake at some point because aside from him irritating a lot of us, he is a very good driver, but he knows it and he's in the best car. So for Mercedes fans and for Hamilton fans, it's a dream combination. But, you just sort of get tired of he's a sore loser.
Yeah. He's not the best loser, I wouldn't have said.
No.
Not the best winner all the time either, mind you. But
so it's nice to see him a little bit flustered. Sort of makes him seem like a real person.
Yeah, it is nice. So we'll see how we go, but probably time to switch over to the Blancpain race now. It is probably shaping up
not
to be
just
a
yet
podcast, but it's not just yet. No, sorry, Ron, you go for it.
Definitely cannot go through an episode of this podcast without talking about our wonderful favourite race driver in the world, Ricky Capo.
Oh yes, fair enough.
European Le Mans at Monza. As he said in the podcast when he came to see us earlier in the year, he's half Italian, half Australian, so he's extremely excited about going racing here. Very fast in the early sessions in practice, and then came out qualifying, narrowly missed pole position for class, which was really hard to see, but very good to see though. To see that the car was up there and thereabouts in the race to go on, and they beat. The team got a 1-2, so they're first and second in class, and they beat their sister car by over a lap. So huge effort. And by two drivers as well.
Yeah,
two drivers in the car for the race, for a 4-hour race. So it's a very full-on big thing and massive effort, and huge congratulations go out to Ricky Capo.
Absolutely, yep.
It's very, very good to see, and hopefully, big things to come for this kid in the next couple of races and the future onwards. But
I think he's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. And another Australian doing well abroad is obviously Matty Campbell, who is debut year as a Porsche Junior driver in the Super Cup, which was obviously at Catalonia as a support category to the Formula One. Goes out there and, as a rookie in the category, double pole position.
Yeah.
That's
awesome
just
job.
Unreal. It was unfortunate. Race 1 got a bit of a bad start, finished 5th, but did manage to regain in race 2 and get 3rd for the podium. So got to spray some champagne, but on debut to go out there and show them how it's done with the double podium against that sort of field. Again, absolute talent, that kid.
Oh, it's a boss effort, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's good. It's good to see. It's really good to see, and I don't think we doubted him for a second. But as you say, just amazing to go out and do that in front of that sort of field grid behind him. Yeah, he's onwards and forwards. I'm sure he'll be standing on the top step of the podium soon enough.
And that's the thing. I mean, the Super Cup is essentially the same as Carrera Cup in all the individual countries, except it's basically the best of the best. All the good drivers from each of the countries sort of converge on Super Cup, and it really brings out the shine in that. So I think I saw it was going back to 2002 or something. Was the last time an Australian got a pole, which was Alex Davison.
Okay.
So going back a couple of years there, don't quote me on the
15,
year, but yeah.
So, it's 15 years, but it's massive for Australians.
Yeah, so it's a good thing, and definitely cannot wait to see him. He's obviously the next race for him will be at Monaco, so bring it on.
Absolutely. Yeah, he'll do well, I'm sure.
Yeah. And I guess with that, we'll move on to the Blancpain.
To the Blancpain, absolutely. Well, look, it had to be said. We are staring down the barrel of a longer podcast, but that's all right. We're having fun. We've got plenty to talk about, gents. So, it's good.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Good weekend of racing, yeah.
It's stark contrast to last weekend, but I've literally just finished watching that race before getting on here, and I was standing up watching the end of that race. It was insane. I was gripping racing. The whole 3 hours was just full on. The battles up the front, and it was all clean. There was none of these like dirty sort of knock them off. No, it was like everyone gave each other the respect on track and made some unreal moves, and it was so good to see the front group, just battling it out as hard as they possibly could for pretty much the whole race. And in the end, it came down to 0.3 of a second with Maxi Book chasing down the Lamborghini by over half a second a lap. It was hard to see him not get past, obviously being one of my favourite drivers, but you still can't look at that sort of a result and not enjoy it after watching that race.
Absolutely. And look, it is interesting though to see Grasser Racing back on top again with the Lamborghini. That's even though he probably another lap or two, and I think Book probably would have got him, but they are still doing very well in that Lamborghini. It's shaping up to be a very good year for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a stark contrast to WRT, the Audi team. They're just nowhere to be found these days. It was always this massive team that everyone sort of aspired to drive for, and their driver lineup is absolutely unreal. So to see them so much off the pace, it's a very interesting thing. But Lamborghini and Mercedes have definitely stepped up this year, and I don't know what it is they've found, but they've both attacked it with what I think is the biggest key part is sensational driver lineups. The drivers in each of the cars are top notch. There's no real weak link. So that's definitely a big part of what you're going to get when you go out there, and you can confidently. The Grasser team in qualifying did one lap. They didn't go out there on new tyres for Q1 or Q2. They sent Mirko Bortolotti out there the last moment of qualifying 3 to do one lap, and he did it, and he put it on second. That's all you got to do. So it was very good to watch, and 3 hours sort of. I just wanted another 3. It's a sort of when I think of an endurance race, that's the sort of stuff you want to watch.
Absolutely. When it comes down to such a close sort of thing at the end, that's exactly what you want. And even saying that, obviously it was only 0.3 between first and second, but it was only another 3 seconds back to the second Mercedes as well. So that's good after a 3-hour race. And I think it was only 5 seconds back again to the Ferrari 488, the SMP racing car.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, for probably the last 2 hours of the race, it was a 5-way battle.
Yeah,
and then they sort of started to taper off near the end. But literally, for the middle section of the race, there was 1, 2, and 3 nose to tail the whole hour, and you had the Bentley and the Ferrari just reining them in. And by the end of the hour, it was 5. They all 5 of them nose to tail. They came into pits together. That's how close they were. It was insane to watch how fast everyone was going. There was definitely some issues with passing traffic, which I think you're going to get all the time when you've got 55 cars of varying talents and drivers and stuff. But I think there was a couple of guys that need to go back and look at some replays and pull their heads in a bit. It's to see. There was one point there where Maxi Book was following a lapped car for almost a lap. It was a Lamborghini, almost a lap, and I'm thinking. I'm just about to pick my computer up and throw it across the room. But it's just it's so frustrating to see, and you're just watching him get that little bit of a lead, and you're like, oh, he's just tried to catch him for 5 laps to get that, and now he's lost it all. But, so that was a bit frustrating, but I think nobody can be more frustrated than Stracker Racing, because for the 3rd race in a row, the number 44 McLaren has left there on the back of a truck in a state which is just for lack of a better word, completely stuffed.
Yeah.
They've gone into the wall again in a big way. So the last one rode off the car. They exit the turn, straight into the wall. All 3 times, actually, right after a tyre barrier. They really need to get the trajectory right, because if they hit the tyre barrier, they probably might get off so bad. But all 3 impacts at Ascari, and then at Brands Hatch, and now at Silverstone, all 3 right into the wall. And this one, they sort of copped a bit of help, which is unfortunate. But it was at Beckett's. So going into Beckett's, you can imagine the pace that these guys have got.
Yeah.
Gone into there, and the entire left-hand side of the car is completely destroyed. Thankfully, Johnny Kane, the driver, got out and walked away from it. So that's, again, testament to the safety of the car. But
absolutely, yep.
Straka would have to be scratching their head on that one, because that's 3 times in 3 races that car has been completely destroyed.
Yeah.
So...
No,
unfortunate, but
there. Yeah.
But I guess that's when you go racing, these things happen.
That's true. That is racing for you. And look, the end of the race. Tell me about the end of the race. That was a little confusing there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were sort of obviously Maxi Book was chasing him down, and he sort of managed to catch him with about 6 or 7 minutes to go, and there seemed to be a couple of opportunities where he could probably get him, but it just didn't happen. And then, you're sort of on absolute edge. And they were heading towards the line. They were probably at 3 or 4 turns away from it. And it looked like they were going to cross the line with potentially seconds remaining. So I'm thinking, oh, yeah, right, you get 2 more laps, no worries. They crossed the line, and there was like 2 or 3 seconds remaining. But immediately after that happened, they hadn't even made it off the front straight yet. There was a little visual on the timing thing which said final lap. So the commentator's like, oh, okay, well, they're obviously just going to call it. These guys are still just hard at it the whole time, all the way around. And it came down to the last turn, and Maxi Book was almost like he made this big dive, didn't manage to pull it off, and they've just hard down the straight. No checkered flag. But the Grasser team was so bloody excited, thinking, oh, well, they've seen the final lap. He didn't get past him. They're all bloody going hysterical in the freaking garage. And thankfully, I've just instantly jumped up. I'm thinking, Maxi, you freaking stay on it. You keep your foot down, because if he lets up, yeah. And all of a sudden, the final lap thing popped back up again, and it was still green, and everyone was like, oh, what's going on here? And they went back to the garage of Grasser, and they're like, huh? What? What's going on here? So another lap pursued, but unfortunately, I don't know whether Maxi did get out of it a little bit, or if he sort of hindered himself or whatever. There was a little bit of a gap. He did manage to catch up, but it was too late. Went through the last turn and crossed in second, 0.3 of a second behind. So it was unfortunate, but that's racing, and I mean, although I want to see Max win. The
logistical issues of a timed race, I suppose, as opposed to a lap certain race.
Well, that's right. When they crossed the line, apparently they'd done 2 hours, 59 minutes and 57 seconds. So, I mean, if you're going to cross if you're going to cross to the T, definitely that's the rules. You get another lap. So, yeah. But it was very confusing. But I was just happy because I thought it was another opportunity that Maxi could have got him, but he didn't. So, I guess that's how it goes.
It is. Well, thank you to everyone who has joined us for this episode. Hopefully you have enjoyed. And, of course, feel free to check out all of our podcasts on the YouTube channel. If you're watching on that, you're already on the channel, so just follow your nose there. But otherwise, everything's on our website at www.flagtoflag.ml. And last but not least, thanks for joining me, Ryan and Willie.
No worries at all.
Look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes, look forward to catching up with you face-to-face for another podcast. Something a little bit different next week, but no, it should be good, so make sure you do tune into that. If you're still listening through this epic podcast, then thanks again. But for now, we'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.